Yeah, actually, I think I wrote some of my finest poems when I was 9 years old. And I think I rediscovered writing when I went to US. What is yoga? I said, I have no clue. Can you speak in Sanskrit? I said, no. He came to me and he said, can you tell me what my name means? I said, I have no idea what your name means. He said, don't worry about punctuation, don't worry about grammar, just write. But 2012 is when I started thinking that it all has to come together now.
So, what was your first formal writing? Something that you've done or posted?
I'm now 45 years old. Now at least I can do my passion project, Life, as in the years happen. You suddenly want to revisit that young, idealistic part of you again. Today, my mojo will stay intact. I will not allow it to fall. And I just rediscovered the fun side of me. Who knows, like this happened with my friend who's a video logger. He's now earning more from YouTube than he ever earned in his life. Right? So,
Nice.
Friendship is an extremely important part of not allowing yourself to stay in that low mood. Friends are going to sustain you more than family. If you don't bring back your mojo, you'll slip into old age very soon.
How much is the correlation between rediscovering the midlife or your mojo and self-love? Another episode of The Next Show with Nagma, and today with me I have somebody who's been a writer throughout her life. Somebody who's been into poetry, creative writing, screenplay writing, and a lot of other things from the time when she was, I think, 9 years old. I would love to welcome Nandita Kaushik into Next Show today. Nandita, welcome.
Thank you, Nagma. It's my pleasure to be here.
I'm right? It's 9 years, right?
9 years.
When you started
you're absolutely
writing.
right.
Okay. So, how do you remember, or did somebody tell you, or do you used to journal at that moment?
Yeah, actually, I think I wrote some of my finest poems when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
So it's a very vivid memory in my brain, and I was always a very deep thinking, philosophical kind of a kid who, of course, had a lot of fun also when required. But I remember my first poem was on silence. So, yeah, it was quite, now that I think, for a child to write about silence, it was quite, it was quite funny.
That's actually funny. But then how did that trajectory move, like? Were you always writing? What kind of writings do you do? Like, I'm talking about the passion ones, not the trained writings. I'm sure later you would have pursued it, but how did that trajectory go like?
Well, actually, the trajectory came to an end by the time I was 10 or 11 years old, because I was just having too much of fun in life, and I was always into sports and drama and theatre and music. So I think all my creative energies went into that direction. And I used to learn Kathak. So I started performing and on stage, and all of those things happened. And I think I rediscovered writing when I went to US.
Okay.
So for a year I was in US.
Okay. This
was when I was 13 years old. Okay. And the English teacher there, I still remember his name, Mr. George. I don't remember his surname now. Okay. And he was fascinated by the fact that in his little school there was an Indian girl. Okay, I was the only Indian in that school. So he wanted to know everything from me. What is yoga? I said, I have no clue. Can you speak in Sanskrit? I said, no.
Obviously not. Yeah.
So then, the entire school wanted to know the meaning of their name, because by mistake, I told them that Nandita means this. Okay. And they were like, there was this boy, I still remember, his name was Michael. Very good looking, football team head, etc. And he came to me and he said, can you tell me what my name means? I said, I have no idea what your name means. I don't think it means anything.
Actually, the English names I don't really think they have meanings.
No, they
but then,
don't.
yeah. Okay, interesting.
So that English teacher,
Uh-huh.
he kind of groomed me. So, you know, he discovered that I have a flair for writing.
Okay.
And he would tell me just do what he called as loose writing.
Yeah.
He said, don't worry about punctuation, don't worry about grammar, just write. And, you know, he unfortunately for me took me under his wing.
Yeah.
So every day he would give me homework. Every day. And he would be like,
Okay.
I want to see what you wrote. And then he would sit and after class, he would sit me down and actually teach me how to write, creative writing.
Interesting. Okay.
And then he made me the fiction editor of the newspaper, school newspaper.
Okay.
And though it was very, very tiresome for me because I just wanted to go and have fun, but I think he trained me.
Yeah.
He trained me on how to be a writer.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, did you continue once you came back from US
No.
also? You again lost it.
I again
Okay,
lost
Mr.
it.
George, you need it again. And then what happened?
Then I think I just lost it for a very long time. Of
Okay.
course, in my workplace, because I was a market researcher. So you do tend to write long reports, you write presentations,
Yeah.
all of that. So it
Yeah.
went more into professional writing rather than creative
Yeah.
writing. Once in a while, the odd poem would pop in and, you know, I would write it down somewhere and promptly lose it again. I actually started writing again as recently as 2012. Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's a long gap then.
long gap, really long
Right.
gap.
But then since, okay, if you're telling me that you've restarted only since 2012, but you've written a lot of blogs, you've done poetry, you've course-written books, a lot of things. You've written your own book, which is Rediscover Your Midlife Mojo, and you're still writing. You're working on new material. So then that's a lot of things together at a same time.
Yeah.
So did you have a career plan change? Did you move fully into writing?
I think, I don't know what happened in 2012. It was anyway a very fundamental year for the entire world. And for me also, I think the tap just opened. And once it opened, it was like you have to make up for all those years. So, you know, it's not like I wasn't writing. I would be writing in some diary or some notebook or in my computer, something. And I would just be like a diary, like a dear diary. I would be just keeping track of things in my life. But 2012 is when I started thinking that it all has to come together now, you know. And literally, I couldn't wait for my work day to get over and just shut myself in my space and write and write and write and write and write. And it was actually because of all of those blogs and essays that Rediscover Midlife Mojo came alive, because it's not like this book was written in one shot.
True.
It was an amalgamation and collection of all of those thoughts and essays and blogs, etc., etc. Which I just said, you know, there seems to be a consistent theme in this, which is around midlife. So why not make a book out of it? So just like that, the book
So that
came.
means that it's never too late to rediscover any of the passion that
Not
one
at all.
hold, and it doesn't matter when and how you discover it. So what was your first formal writing? Something that you've done or posted out there in a blog or published as an article, or what was that first piece of work that you've actually put there?
Actually, now that I recall, I have always had a passion for filter coffee, you know that, right?
Yeah.
So I created a brand for myself, and well, it didn't really go very big. It was just distributed to a few households in Gurgaon. It was called Kapi. And when Kapi shut, that kind of was, something that felt very big for me. Okay, so my first blog that I wrote, in fact, I called my blog, at that time we had this blog platform called Blogspot. I don't know if you remember Blogspot. So
it's still there.
It's still there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I started a blog there called Kapi Conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coffee with Karan. Okay.
And that was when I started writing again, because the
Mm.
world was writing blogs, so I
Mm.
also joined in.
Oh,
And that's
nice.
how Kapi Conversations came in. Of course, I continued with that for some time,
Okay.
but then because I had so much to write that I would keep shifting gears,
Okay.
Sometimes it was this blogs, then I joined Medium. So I
Ah,
started writing on Medium. And then I reached out to a few portals and websites, and they gave me work, so I was writing for them. Yeah.
Good. So we're getting paid to write. That's good.
Well, you know what the payments were, but yeah.
Okay. So when did Midlife Mojo, Rediscover Your Midlife Mojo, the book come together?
I think I started writing the essays related to midlife, and because I was going through it.
Yeah.
So I think I started it around 2019.
Okay.
And 2018, 2019, my son had finished his class 12th and decided that he wants to go to US, and that was a big, huge ordeal for me to send him, at the age of 17 to US. So that kind of made me think a lot about emptiness and grown-up children and all of those topics. And so I started writing. So yeah, it actually started around 2018 actually. So between 2018 to 2020, that's what I used the COVID time to actually keep
properly
writing.
sit there and write that everything that you want to communicate. So
Which is why there's a reference on COVID also in the book.
I mean, that makes sense in which ways, because if you are really being so authentic and honest about what you're writing, I think when you're writing it definitely matters.
Yeah, of course it impacts you.
So when you're in your journey of writing, Rediscover Your Midlife Mojo, midlife as a word is something that we just very casually take somewhere, maybe post 35 or post 40, somebody who is midlife, or we call them a midlife. We don't really think about it much deeper. I'm not talking about the younger generation, not the people at 30s, but even the people at 40 and 50, they don't really think about it much.
Yeah.
So how do you define midlife?
I think I define midlife as transition.
Okay.
Right? So, and that transition is mostly triggered by an external event. So, some people can hit their midlife even in their early 40s probably.
Okay.
Right? Depending on what got triggered. I think it's a time where you just sit down with yourself and you question everything. Okay. You question, why was my journey like this so far? What is going to happen now? Why am I where I am? You know, so everything becomes like you get into a sort of a questioning mode. Okay. Almost like an existential crisis which happens. But I mean, not to say it's so big and so overwhelming. Not very little things, like when you start noticing your graying hair, when you start noticing that your energy levels are not that high anymore, when you suddenly notice that your son is sprouting a beard and a mustache. Okay.
Makes sense. Okay.
So yeah, any of these events really.
Why is it seen in a very negative way?
That's the thing. That's the thing that I'm addressing in the book. That yes, it is a little shocking because suddenly one fine day it just hits you. Okay. Oh dear, I have already finished 20 years of my adult life. I'm not talking about our childhood and all, but say if adulthood begins around 21, then around 42, 43, you suddenly realize you've spent 20 years. And that seems like a long duration. It is. And you've gone through a lot during that time. So the journey starts a little negatively because, you're like evaluating your past. Okay. So you relive your mistakes, you relive some of the things which did not go down well, etc., etc. But inherently, it shakes you, it jolts you into saying, what's going to happen in the next few decades of my life? Okay. Right? So then it becomes a little positive. Okay. So it may start a little negatively, but once you analyze it and evaluate it, then you have no choice but to put it onto a more positive footing, So for
Makes
me,
sense.
midlife is actually very, very freeing, because you don't have to judge yourself anymore.
Yeah, and everybody has grown up.
Exactly.
You don't have to like spoon feed anybody
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Ah,
And you become very
interesting.
comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
realize, okay, this is who I am.
Mm.
And
Take it or leave it.
yeah, and that's what you tell yourself actually, not
Yeah.
even the outside world. You tell yourself,
Yeah.
look, this is what you are.
Yeah.
Now either you accept it or, too bad. This is who you are,
Interesting.
Obviously, it means you can keep improving yourself. I'm
Mm.
not saying improvement happens till you die,
Mm.
but at least you reach a point where you know yourself a little bit
Yeah.
and you want to explore yourself a lot more. So I think
Hmm.
the focus moves from we and us to
Okay.
I.
Huh. Okay.
So, I mean, either you can think of that as a negative event. I would say it's a very positive thing to happen when
Nice.
you're thinking about yourself.
So when you say midlife is also a stage of transition, which could also be a lot of transition in your mental state, your thought process.
Yes.
It could be transformational, right? But it is kind of the same age where people who are a little financially stable. Otherwise, we also know people who are slogging the same thing, doing the same thing over and over, not retiring because they don't have a way to go. When they
Yeah.
really have to continue doing that for the sake of their family. But people who are slightly financially stable, they do a complete twist and turn on
Curveball.
their career altogether.
Absolutely.
So is this actually related, like a
Completely.
natural process or
Yeah.
thought process from your aging or your midlife, or is it okay, I'm financially stable now, I can do whatever I want?
I guess it's a mix of both.
Okay.
I guess some more evolved beings decide that, okay, how do you define enough?
Huh.
Right? I mean, you've got a roof, you've got some lovely cars,
Yeah.
if you have kids, then
Mm.
they're on their way. At
Mm.
least there is a path for them.
Mm.
So yeah, some people just prioritize their free time,
Yeah.
looking after their health, and maybe get into their hobbies,
Mm.
something that they've put on the back burner for a
Yeah.
long time. In
Yeah.
fact, right now I was just helping an author who has written a book,
Yeah.
and his comment was that, I waited for 40. I'm now 45 years old. Now at least I can do my passion project.
Mm.
So you kind of get into this late rebellion,
Okay.
and you're like, okay, work is there, family is there, but what about me?
Mm.
So all your passion projects, all your side gigs, hobbies
Yeah.
suddenly come alive,
Ah.
and you want to just, not waste a single new moment and just go for it, kind of a thing. So I think that's really what happens
That's
around
freeing.
this time. It's very freeing.
So technically, then that is the title of your book.
Yeah.
So I think we all had our mojo at some stage when
Yeah.
we were younger, maybe the college days or your initial work days, when we were like, I
20s.
want to do this, I want to do that, this is my passion, this is what I want to
Absolutely.
follow.
Yeah.
We follow that or not is a different question.
Yeah.
So is that why you titled the book as Rediscovering Your Mojo? Yes, it's during the midlife.
Yes, that's it. You've got it. I mean,
What-
like you said, we have our mojo, and
Yeah.
we are hopeful and enthusiastic, and we'll take the world by storm. All of those things happen in
Yeah.
your idealistic early 20s, and then somewhere you start to realize reality is a little different from that. Right? And you adjust, and you adjust.
Mm.
And then again, when midlife happens, or midlife as in the years happen,
Okay.
you suddenly want to revisit that young, idealistic part of you again.
Mm.
Right? And of course, this mojo is a little different from that mojo, the 20s mojo. This mojo is what all about. Where is it? You are hunting for it.
Yeah.
You're trying to dig it out from
Yeah.
inside of you,
Yeah.
which is why this feels far more powerful, because
Mm.
you've brought it out from your system.
Yeah.
Unlike that 20s
You've
mojo where it
shucked
was
away
gifted to you.
Everything.
Yeah.
Not needed. You've experienced your life and you've like picked out the diamonds.
Yeah, exactly,
Ah.
exactly. So it's a big effort. It's a big effort, and not only to unearth it, but to sustain it on a day-to-day basis. That, every day you get up in the morning and you say, today my mojo will stay intact. I will not allow it to fall.
Oh, yeah. That's hard work. Oh,
Lot of
yeah.
hard work, but it's worth it.
Oh yeah, but I'm curious, what did you rediscover?
I rediscovered writing.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes without saying. I rediscovered dancing. Yeah.
Okay.
Whether I do it in the privacy of my room or I do it with friends, but
Yeah.
I rediscovered that.
Yeah.
And I just rediscovered the fun side of me.
Okay.
I think that was my biggest rediscovery, that in the demands of life and raising children and working non-stop and all of that
Yeah.
crap, you forget to have fun.
Yeah.
So when I entered,
True.
when I came around my mid-40s, I realized, where is the fun? I'm such a movie buff, so I started going regularly for movies. Whether I had company or not, I said, doesn't matter. I started traveling because I love traveling.
Yeah.
So to me, it was more about bringing my 20-year-old Nandita back.
No, that's liberating. I mean, that's
Yeah.
actually really nice. So now, when you started writing about midlife and rediscovering yourself, I'm sure you would have talked to a lot of people.
Yes.
You would have taken inspiration from a lot of people. What are some of those stories like? Well, I'm sure people who are listening also,
Yeah.
there could be people who could use a little bit of motivation from somewhere.
Absolutely. Like, I saw that a few of my friends in their early 40s, they just kind of, decided this is it.
Okay.
I'm not going to carry on anymore. And we've invested enough. We have enough savings. We're just going to give up.
Okay.
So they stopped working just like that one fine day. Another friend of mine decided that she wants to open her dance school.
Oh,
So
nice.
she stopped. She stopped working too. And
Yeah.
till date, she's, continuing with her dance school. And yet another friend had, unfortunately, some health issues. And she said, I can't do this anymore. And now she's also writing.
Nice.
Then another friend of mine, he's a journalist. And he decided that he was located outside India. So he decided might as well use this opportunity. And he became a video logger. I think that's what it's called, right?
Nice.
Video logging.
Yeah.
And he
Video
would do
blogger.
these
Yeah.
video logger. I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Video blogger.
Yeah. And he would do all these amazing, beautiful travel videos. And he collected such a big gathering, which was completely unexpected for him. He was just doing it for the fun of it. So I saw a lot of people around me are, questioning themselves, what they've been doing so far. Why are they doing it? What else is there in life to do, And just like that, one fine day, you get a call saying, I've stopped working. Okay.
Okay, and what next?
What next? And most of them didn't even have a
Yeah.
clue.
Yeah.
What's the
But
next?
that's brave.
Yeah, it's very brave.
Oh my God. Because considering, I think a lot of people may not take such kind of a decision as thinking of what next.
Yeah.
Children education, somebody's wedding, what about the, maybe not rental, because I think by that age mostly everybody would have made a
Their
house
own
and
house,
closed
yeah.
out the EMIs. Yeah, I think the family health concerns,
Yeah.
health issues, but that's inspiring. So how do a lot of people that you interact with now, is there anything that they do so that after taking such a decision, they've been able to be financially stable as well?
I think they've planned their lives
Mm.
better. That's what I would say. And that would be one probably message that I would give if there's anybody in their 20s and 30s hearing this,
Yeah.
that start planning for your midlife
Yeah.
crisis.
Yeah.
Because around the mid 40s, you're definitely going to question a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
So and it's almost like it's not even in your control,
Yeah.
right? So you will go through this emotional graph. So might as well be ready for it,
Yeah.
and make sure you have all your eggs in the right baskets, and you have a house that you
Yeah.
own. Because once you have taken care of your bigger financial things.
Mm.
I'm not saying the day to day,
Mm.
but you have a house,
Mm.
you have a kitty for your children or
Mm.
whatever, then at least you can free yourself up
Yeah.
to maybe take on some passion projects. And
Yeah.
who knows, like this happened with my friend who's a
Yeah.
video logger. He's now earning more from YouTube than he ever earned in his life.
Wow.
Right? So,
Wow. Nice.
so you never know, when
Yeah.
will things take off? Like I know this another person who just started doing some photography,
Mm.
and then he realized he's very good with food photography.
Oh.
So he would just, again, out of just passion, he would take a lot of food photographs.
Okay.
And then he became a professional because people started demanding that and paying him for,
Interesting.
his work.
That's nice.
So, yeah, so I would say sometimes your passion projects
Mm.
actually even become bigger than your working life. And then what financial stability is? Financial abundance then.
True. Fingers crossed.
Fingers
That's
crossed.
amazing.
Yes.
So, in your book also, you were talking about a lot of like giving the facts out there. Like there could be scenarios where you might feel depressed, or now, like how you told your son moved away, your daughter has to go for studies now. The empty nest syndrome, if I'm
Yes.
right. So things like that. A lot of those facts you actually put out there, where you're also trying to communicate to people it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to always be that chirpy,
Exactly.
high, bubbly self yours. It's
Yeah.
okay to go down once in a while, but it's important how to come out of it as well.
Absolutely.
So, what is the general messaging around that? Because today I'm trying to understand the scenario as well, because I'm not in my midlife yet, so obviously I don't know. But observing a few people, like generally people that I see around, people don't notice.
Yeah. When they slip.
Yeah, when they slip, they may just start losing themselves out, but they're not
Yeah.
trying to either come out of it,
Yeah.
or it is that whatever they've been doing or whatever the life that they're leading, it's so structured,
Yeah.
and the societal pressure and everything coming into picture. It's like a girl who's crossed 22, 23, and the societal pressure of marriage comes into
Yeah.
picture.
True.
So I've generally seen, and this is not just female, both female and
And
male.
men. Yeah.
So what is the general perception around that? And amongst you and your friends, what is the general discussion? What's the talk?
I think friendship is an extremely important part of not allowing yourself to stay in that low mood. Because when you surround yourself and you have with friends and you have a good social circle,
Yeah.
I don't think friends allow you to just stay there. They'll pull you out of it,
Okay.
because more than anything else, for very selfish reasons,
Mhm.
they also want to have fun. So they don't want to see this moody,
One person
depressed,
sulking.
sad midlifer amongst them.
Okay.
So I think all the midlifers just come together and pull each other out of it. The bad thing happens if you have not been very proactive in terms of sustaining your friendships over the years. So I think and that's one thing that gets neglected, and that's why in my book I think I've dedicated more than 2-3 chapters to it, because it is such an important part of the journey which is going to happen from
Yeah.
midlife till however long you live, that
Yeah.
friends are going to sustain you more than family. Because this is the time when it hits you that your children are now adults, they're going to build their own life, they're going to be worried about their future,
Yeah.
securing themselves. That
Yeah.
entire rut that you went through,
Yeah.
they're going to go through it.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel a little bit of an outsider because they're taking decisions on their own. So where do you go? Whom do you turn to? Who needs you at that point in time, right? Your friends do.
Yeah.
Your peer group needs you, right? Or maybe even those who are in their adolescence years or the young 20s, they need you more in terms of a mentor,
True.
right? So you rediscover
Yeah.
friends, you make new friends, you join clubs, you maybe make friends with people half your age, because
You
that's
stay
what-
young.
you stay young. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm thankful that I'm surrounded by friends who are young at heart.
Yeah.
So and sometimes we catch ourselves talking too much about health and body slowing down and all those sad things
Yeah,
happening to us,
yeah.
and then we just kind of break out of it saying, let's just go for a movie, or let's go bowling, or let's go and do some Zumba or something.
Yeah.
So I think friends are very important to get you out.
Interesting. So once the book was out, from your circle, what was the feedback?
Well, they said we could relate to every word that you
Oh
wrote.
yeah.
I said, yeah,
Okay.
because it was based on you.
Of course. I mean, these are the people you based your research on, and
Yeah.
being the research expert that you are, I think you would have, like, as a spy, sneakingly figure out everything that you wanted to write in.
Yeah. I have to sometimes tell them, don't tell me too much. I'm collecting fodder for my book.
Interesting. But overall, how was the response to
Yeah,
the book?
they said they said we resonated with every
Mhm.
word, and the nicest compliment I got was one of them said, we just finished the book in one go. In one sitting, we finished the book
Nice.
because it was such an easy read.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we read it again because we realized there were some things which were very profound in it.
Okay.
So, so I think they realized that there was a lot of thought which had gone into the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Because like you said, being the researcher, I have to get to the core, I have to understand, but why till I reach
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bottommost
Mhm.
reason.
Mhm.
So, yeah, they enjoyed the book, actually. Mostly that was the feedback that I got.
Seeing the energetic person that you are and knowing you as much as I know you, I kind of feel that the book or the concept of working with the people in their midlife, or bringing out those inspiring stories, or helping each other out, like pulling somebody else out from their wherever
Their
they are
midlife
low,
crisis.
their crisis, and then showing them a new path. I'm sure you might be thinking of doing a lot more other than just the book.
Yes.
What are you planning?
Well, Nagma, if I had my way, I would do a podcast wherein, I would like to meet people who are either going through a midlife crisis or have recovered from it, or are doing interesting things, or are not doing interesting
Yeah,
things. That's fine.
Yeah.
But essentially, I would, like to see how people are coping up with it,
Yeah.
and using the podcast probably to tell women in particular that they need to reinvent themselves, because this is also a very, and I use this word very deliberately, this is also a very dangerous phase, because if you don't bring back your mojo, you'll slip into old age very soon.
True.
You'll just start decaying and becoming slower and slower, and suddenly one fine day you'll realize you've become an elderly, right?
Yeah.
So it is a very deliberate attempt that you need to do to keep going back to your youth, keep bringing that youthful energies from inside of you, which has got buried somewhere in the past. Bring it out, bring out those memories, bring out those hobbies, those interests. Go ice skating if that's what you loved to do when you were a kid. Just enjoy yourself, because and that's what I want the podcast to do. That question people, like, what were you doing when you were a kid, right? What would you like to explore today? So yeah, I think midlife to me is a very fascinating platform. So podcast can be one, and maybe new ideas will come thereafter.
Of course, I'm sure. I mean, I was about to ask my last question, but what you just
or maybe
said,
another book might come.
Part two,
part
part
2.
3. I wouldn't know. So,
what do you do after you've rediscovered your mojo?
Exactly. So that's where I was about to come to also. What you just said now, it just, how much is the correlation between rediscovering the midlife or your mojo and self-love?
Oh, self-love. Much debated.
Yeah. No, that's why it's just when you were talking about it, the podcast entire bit, that just came into, so I couldn't just refrain not asking.
Yeah, I think this self-love that happens is more like peace.
Okay.
You become peaceful with yourself.
Okay.
So I don't know whether that's self-love or not, but it's like in one of the chapters in the book where I think it starts with saying, "Yippee, I'm finally free." Because you can decide what you want to do, and if your mood says that today I don't feel like really doing this, which I've always done in my routine, nobody's asking you to, right? You can just tell yourself, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it, right? So, of course, I'm not saying you become non-cooperative and sulk or whatever, but it is peace with your decisions. It's peace with your personality. And I think that's the self-love. That's the point you reach to.
Interesting. Thank you. That just came in and I actually wanted to just ask that. Okay, coming back to the writer.
And just on that, I remember when I was telling this to a 25-year-old, her reaction was, when will I hit my midlife?
So that you can rediscover.
So that I can be peace with myself.
Oh God. Okay. No, I mean, that's what I was telling also. Even I told you when I was reading the book, there are a lot of things you could connect, but then obviously there were a lot of things I just threw away because, okay, it doesn't apply to me now. I'm still young. But that's what I want to tell myself. But yeah, I can understand. So, coming back to the writer in you, what next in your writing journey?
I want to now write some fiction.
Okay.
Because, a writer, if they don't write fiction, they are in a very dangerous place because then they'll start implementing it in their life and creating stories out of their life.
Okay. Okay.
So, rather than making a big ash out of your own life, just channelize all those wild, imaginative characters and things which are coming in your head and put it down on paper and create a fiction book out of it.
Everybody, please write more murder mysteries.
Yeah, exactly.
So that nobody murders.
And nobody murders.
Okay. What kind of fiction are you writing?
Surprisingly, I've gone into what I would call as drama. Okay. The drama genre, because I guess because when you reach this age, you've seen enough drama happening around you and in your circle, right? So that becomes like an inspiration in itself. As they say, reality is stranger than fiction.
It is.
So by now you've seen so many weird, strange things happening in real life that fodder is just waiting for you to put into a fiction book. So I'm working on a fiction book. I'm hoping to get into speculative fiction thereafter. That's another a realm which fascinates me, and so I would like to use that part of me also and create some interesting speculative fiction from there. So let's see. Let's see where it goes.
Good to see that your rediscovered mojo is really taking some good turns. Nice. But keeping all of that aside, Nandita, thank you so much for being part of this conversation today. I'm sure it made difference to a lot of people.
I hope so.
Thank you so much for being here today. Is there one last message that you would want to give to the readers?
Don't question life too much and, just go with the flow. It all works out.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing message to end the talk or conversation of today, and I'll see you back again with another episode. Till then, like, subscribe, keep sharing the videos with everybody. And to you, Nandita, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Good luck to you in your writing journey.
It's amazing talking to you. Thank you.